We are live from Rock Hill, South Kakalaka for another edition of my mom's in the room. She refuses to come on camera, so she'll probably just be shouting comments from the corner. But we are live from Rock Hill, South Carolina for another edition of Going the Distance. Couple of things to highlight and note. I know I talked last week about my friend Zach, who is doing a fundraiser for the Vasculitis Foundation. And my hands are covering up. Sorry, I'm out of my groove, out of my element. My friend Zach is doing a fundraiser for the Vasculitis Foundation at his marathon that is in April. He's running the Eugene Marathon and has decided that he wants to help raise awareness and raise some funds for the Vasculitis Foundation. He is not a vasculitis patient. He is just a friend and a fellow App State mountaineer who enjoys the act of running really far, apparently, because he's doing a marathon. So he's doing two incredible feats. One of them with his feet, and this is a bad joke. One of them with his feet, and the other one choosing to run for a good cause. And I can't thank him enough for that. So I've tossed up the link to his campaign in the description. He's $20 short right now of our goal of $300. Just like your goals in running or anything else in life, we want to blow those out of the water. So if you can, every dollar helps, obviously. Or if you like, share with your friends, that would be incredible. As I've said before, the Vasculitis Foundation does a lot for families and vasculitis patients all around the world, with providing continuing education material for doctors so that patients can get the right knowledge in their hands to diagnose patients faster, as well as patients that don't have access to doctors that they need, that they can get that information that they need. So the Vasculitis Foundation is obviously something that I've enjoyed. There's a company that I've enjoyed working with, and it's a cause that is very, very near and dear to my heart. So, Zach, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing this. It's not something that I asked him to do. It completely caught me off guard. It just goes to show you the type of person that Zach is. And there are still a few good humans left in the world, contrary to what we're hearing on the news right now. So, I tossed a link up there, so it came through. Okay, so if anybody, I know some people had some problems with the link last week. If you got problems with the link, just let me know. We'll see what we can work out. But yeah, I am down in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Just got here in time for some good home cooked soup from Mom. I am in town for the Trojan Relays, which is a meet that is hosted at my high school by my father, who was the track coach there. It's been going on for like 44 years now. I think I asked Dad the other day. My dad hadn't coached for 44 years. He's old, but he's not that old. But the meet is 44 years old, I believe now, and I'm coming out here to help Pappy put on the meet, and I'll also be selling books out there. So if anybody's in town, stop by Northwestern High School at 1501 North Main Street, Rock Hill, South Carolina. I think I just pulled that address right out of my head. I think that's right, 1401 or 1501 or something. I don't know how I remember that. But anyways, so I'll be at Northwestern High School Saturday, probably from about 9 or 10 a.m. till 2, selling books, probably hanging out with my mom, my assistant. So she's here assisting me tonight with Courage West Main Street. Sorry, Caroline. Memory's not as good as it once was. So anyways, I'll also probably be up at, not officially, but not officially selling books. Well, we're not going to advertise it that way, but I may or may not have books with me in my possession. On Friday night, it looks like I'm going to probably be hanging out at the track meet at UNC Charlotte. There's a collegiate meet there. My alma mater is going to be there. Both of them, I believe, actually, as well as Temple University, where my coach coaches at currently. He and I don't ever get to see each other. So, in fact, we've only seen each other once since the Olympic trials in 2016. So, I'll be hanging out there. So if you see me, I probably will have some in my book bag. If we want to act like we're doing a drug deal in the parking lot, I'll be happy to sell you a good out of my bag. So, anyways, that's where I'll be this week. If anybody's in the Rock Hill or Charlotte area, hit me up. I've got some books with me. And we'll do a deal. So, anyways, what else do I have to go over here? Oh yeah. Allison looks like her mom was her assistant too, and website designer, proofreader, and #1 fan. Moms are always awesome. My mom is awesome. My mom has been, I think she even proofread the book, actually. So some of it, she's not taking she's not taking credit for the parts that she didn't proofread. So, and my girlfriend proofread the other part, but, as well as my editor. But, anyways, yeah. My mom's not a website designer, but she is a baller cook. So, and of course, B-Hudge fan #1, the original. So, if you hear somebody shouting in because I'm doing wrong or saying something wrong or talking inappropriate, my mother's here to keep me on the straight and narrow tonight. So there won't be any cuss words. I think, unless it comes from my mom from the corner. What's up, Rubus? Hope you're enjoying Eugene, man. But last week and the week prior, I've been encouraging, Allison probably doesn't know this because she hasn't been tuning in, but, I've been encouraging everybody to go out and learn something every week. And not just learning, like I said last week, like learning something that changes your opinion on something is one of the coolest things for me in the world. To like bring that kind of like, I guess, full circle right now with like Stephen Hawking passing away. Like, I've read a lot of his works over the years and a lot of his research papers and like, just like mind blowing stuff. And, for the world to lose a genius and, an incredible thinker like that, there's a big hole in the consciousness of Earth right now. So we all need to pick up the slack a little bit and carve out a little time to learn something, because it's easy to kind of just stay in our own little missile silos of thought and echo chambers, and not learn stuff, not see stuff from other people's opinion. Or not other people's opinions, but other people's side of things or whatever. And, so I've been challenging everybody to learn something, each week. And that's how I really want to take this podcast from here on out, and just challenging everybody to go out into the world and learn something new that maybe even changes your opinion on something, or, forces you to take a look at something that you hadn't thought about in the past. And I think it's, very, very important for us. When you stop learning, you die. And I think that is just such a true cliche statement. And if anybody found out anything over the last week, or since I challenged everybody last week or 2 weeks ago, if anybody's learned anything, I'd love to chat about it. One thing I kind of jotted down that has been that I learned about myself recently, and this is kind of self-serving and not necessarily about the greater world at large. But I realized this past week with kind of where my life has gone, and when you get a Rituxan infusion and it kind of like knocks you down, and I talked about this last week, where it's like, I've realized over the last couple of weeks that I'm doing what I love to do, and running is definitely, for lack of a better word, like my muse. Like, I would still be doing it if there was nobody else on planet Earth watching. I would have still gotten out there today and gone for a run for some strange reason. So I know I'm doing the right thing, and running has made my life immensely better. It has enriched my life in ways that I never thought that it could. And I'm not just talking about from like the life lessons that running can teach you, like, oh, you have to work hard, and it requires commitment, and it takes time, and you have to buy into the process, and you have to show up every day, and it is difficult. All those cliches and stuff are definitely true, but it's enriched my life in ways that I could have never imagined. But it's also made my life immensely harder by continuing to chase that dream. And that's kind of what I realized over the last couple of weeks, is that chasing this dream and doing this stuff is obviously very, very difficult, but it's been very, very, I'm using the word immensely right now instead of very. So what the word is, made it immensely richer. So I challenge everybody to find something like that in their life that they can chase. And my dear friend Allison here, I know she's a freelance musician and struggles in a lot of the same ways that we do. And I have a good friend that's trying his hand at the thing in Hollywood, and trying to be a movie star and a stand-up comedian. And it's a grind, but I see the things that they post and see the things that they do, and I know they're living a very fulfilled life, even though it is very, very tough. So finding those chances in your life to make the career changes, or even if it's not a career, even if it's just a hobby that you're deciding to take up and spend more time doing, or something you're doing on the weekends, or reading a book, or whatever it is. Find something that's going to enrich your life. So don't be afraid of the hustle, I guess. So anyways, with that said, I think I'm kind of use that to segue into as weird as this might be, of kind of getting involved in things more. And I think we've seen that from the current political climate, wherever you sit, whether you sit on the right or the left or the middle, or in outer space, and want to build a space army with Luke Skywalker, because he's the only person I think that's qualified to build a space army right now. But anyways, wherever you sit, we all need to be more involved, and one thing, regardless of what you think about the political side of this, there was the big walkout today in school, at all the schools, and I think it's a tremendous learning opportunity for the students, and I think it's a tremendous opportunity for the teachers to get kids involved in the political process, and getting them involved in things that are directly going to impact their life, and getting them involved in things that are they're passionate about, because we all need to be more educated about what's going on. We all need to understand more about what we're voting about, or what we're or who we're having represent us. And that, that's not a right or left thing. That's the thing about getting involved in our representative democracy. And I think because I've seen some people take some pop shots at these kids for protests, and I think I think that's a low blow. And I think it's taking pop shots, because anytime that you have the opportunity to teach children to get involved in their own democracy and protest peacefully, I think you have to take that opportunity, especially around. And it's not just about something that they've made up; it's something that is directly impacting their lives and how they feel on a daily basis. And you've seen this, as much trash as they've caught from all of us, myself included, in the millennial generation, for being on their phones and not paying too much attention. You've watched them be able to mobilize over the last several weeks in a way that nobody else is really mobilizing in this country right now, and I think that's incredibly powerful. And I think it's something that we all could take a step back and kind of learn something from, because when there are issues that directly affect us, it's very easy to just kind of sit back and complain about it. But when, like there was a special election in Pennsylvania, yesterday? And like paying attention to small things like that, and getting out there and voting when, it's a representative democracy. And, I think a lot of us, a lot of the problems in America right now, a lot of people have been frustrated, right and left, with directions that the countries is headed, with what they feel like our representatives are doing. They're not necessarily representing the people that put them there, but more or less representing the people that are paying them. And that's not representative democracy. So getting involved has been something that, I've had to become involved because of my health and how I feel healthcare should be tackled in this country. And there's two sides of that. And, I'm not going to really get into that because I think this conversation is more about getting involved and understanding stuff. And I think that's where the learning thing comes in is when you get involved, it forces you to learn something. It forces you to just Google something and not just have a viewpoint that you've had for 20 or 30 or 50 years, but not understand. When you get involved, it forces you to understand. It forces you to understand that the topic, and it also forces you to look at things from different angles. And that's where like I said, that's where the learning thing comes in. Sometimes you might realize you're wrong. I've realized over the last couple of years, I've been wrong about some things that, I had known my whole, or, I had believed my whole life, or a stance that I had. So yeah, I guess they finally cut off the generation divide where millennials, they're post millennials, or the I generation. I didn't even know that. So we're millennials, Allison?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I didn't even know that. So these are post millennials, or the I generation. Jesus, whatever. So people born after 2000. Okay. So, well, those are the kids that are mobilizing right now. And as I was talking with my friend Caroline earlier today about these kids' ability to mobilize, like people around Allison and my age, which are, early 30s, late 20s, we were around when the internet really struck. We were around when social media struck. And I felt like we were really at the forefront of it because, like, Facebook was founded in 2004, and I got it in 2005 when I went to college, and I didn't even really know what it was. So, I've had Facebook for basically 13 years now, so almost half my life, and I felt like I was really on the forefront of it, but I'm continually reminded when I meet younger people, I don't know how to use it. And I think we're really seeing that with these kids' ability to mobilize on a mass scale and get other kids involved and get their ideas out there. I just don't understand. I mean, like, I know how to use it. I use social media, as a lot of you are grossly aware of the fact that I blast stuff on social media nearly daily, whether it's a picture of my butt at the gym or a nice pretty picture of me running, or me trying to be funny. I blast stuff out there on social media and try to use the platform, but they really grew up in it and just understand it. So much, and at such a different level than we do. So I think you're seeing the repercussions of that right now. So Scott says, problems on both sides and hard to find the middle. I think that's what I'm saying. That's what the conversation of sitting down and learning, is really important. Learning and listening, because learning forces you to listen. And that's just not what people are doing right now. Scott, you definitely, having from that, you still have the spirit of a young person, 100%. But yeah, I didn't realize, God, Allison, that still blows my mind that we're considered millennials, but whatever. I guess I'm gonna have to change my terms. These postmodern kids, maybe, I don't know. We're just gonna make up a name for them, or Gen X or whatever. So, mom's dirt, generation dirt over here.
I'm encouraged by
My mom says she's encouraged by the young people. If you're hearing pop shots that you can barely hear from the corner of the room, my mom's sitting in the room. She didn't want to come on right now. I don't know why she's still my highest rated podcast of all time. Her and Dad. So, that was still my most viewed podcast, and I've been struggling to live up to that ever since. Katrina, here we go. Learning might sound silly, but this week I learned to start trusting my body again. And being sick, that isn't easy. We all need to listen to our body. We really need to listen to our bodies. Most people neglect it. Most people end up at the doctor and they're like, why does my body feel bad? And they're like, well, you've been eating like shit. You've not been sleeping. You've been working too much and not exercising. Probably why your body doesn't feel good. But yeah, you have to, especially as vasculitis patients. I was so impressed, and I think I've said this on here before, when Dr. Merkel, who is one of the leading vasculitis doctors in the world, he's one of the smartest people I've ever heard speak. He, who is a huge science person, loves data, does gobs and gobs of research, and has made a huge impact on, thousands of vasculitis patients' lives because of his research. He said, I will trust my patients' feelings for their own body over their blood work. And to hear one of the smartest doctors in the world say that is incredibly important for vasculitis patients. So you have to really be in tune to your body. You have to start paying attention to how certain things make you feel, how exercising make you feel, how different types of exercise make you feel, how different types of food make you feel. Because there's a ton of information out there about diets, and it's like carbs are good, carbs are bad, fat's good, fat's bad. Pizza's good, beer's good. Not anyways. So there's all this information out there, and the reality is you can run into any of those diets. You can find somebody online that says, oh, this worked for me. I cut out fat and I lost 20 pounds, or I cut out carbohydrates and I lost 20 pounds. The reality is there's tons of genetic variability in our population, especially here in America. We are the melting pot of the world. So we have genetics from all across the world that are mixed in with us. So there's a lot of different things that can be playing around in your genetics with how your body handles different foods, with like where your ancestors might have come from and stuff. But you have to, if you start listening to your body, that can check off a lot of those things. So but the best thing is, like Allison just said, put real food in your body and you'll start feeling better. And real food is, stuff. It's not like a Snickers bar, or even like, as much as I love it at times, like stuff like pasta and things like that, like, all these stuff that's processed, stuff that's on the middle aisles, is just not good. So anytime you can eat, fruits, vegetables, meat, fish, eggs, like I just recently saw, and, I have qualms with Weight Watchers, because of the way it's designed. But Weight Watchers recently gave eggs 0 points. Eggs are now a 0-point food on Weight Watchers. So that means you can eat as many eggs as you want to, and it costs you 0 points. So the research is finally, I think, settled on eggs. Eggs are good for you. Even if you're a vegan or a vegetarian, I'm sorry, suck it up and eat some eggs. They're good for you. I eat eggs almost every day. So, I think my mom is raising her hand in the corner like we are in class. I really wish if I wasn't staying here the next couple of days and having her cook me food, and providing me shelter, I would turn the computer around so you could see her, but I would end up in the dog house, and I'm not gonna do that right now. So what would you like to add, Mother?
I was just going to say that I have found that being mindful of what you're eating and actually paying attention to what you're putting in your mouth is oftentimes a better form of diet than a diet, because think of, especially my generation, so used to eating in cars and on the run, and you're literally picking something up, putting it in your mouth, and not really even looking at it.
Okay, I don't know if y'all could hear that, but she's basically saying, be mindful of what you're eating. And we all should be I think that's like the Buddha in being mindful. Isn't that a Buddhist practice? Being mindful. I'm pretty sure that's a Buddha thing. Anyways, but be mindful of what you're eating, and be mindful of how that involvement or how that food reacts with your body, how that food makes you feel. Like,
look at what you're putting in your mouth.
Look at what you're putting in your mouth and take stock of how that makes you feel. Like, I love the mouth pleasure that I get from eating pizza or drinking beer. I like the sensation for a few seconds that thing is in my mouth. I like that. But I also know that it's not going to make me feel very good the following hours. And probably I'm going to probably be a little like lethargic on my run the next day because I don't eat those types of food a lot. And I'm aware of that. So I used to eat pizza like once a week or sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. Or when I was in college, God, it's 3 or 4 times a week, and shoveling in pasta and all this other stuff that I rarely eat now. I mean, I do eat pasta some, but yeah. So let's see if I can catch up on some of these comments real quick here. But yeah, being mindful. I like how my mom put that. Being mindful of the things that you put in your mouth. You know, just well, my mom's saying be mindful and look at it. You know, I look at it and know it's bad for me and just put it in my mouth anyway. Like the bag of M&Ms that I bought on the car ride home today. They stared at me at the cash register at the gas station, and I lost that battle. I lost that battle with the M&Ms. They stared at me and they said, "Brandon, buy me. We're on sale for 99 cents for the king size." And I said, "It's only 99 cents. I'll do it." So I was guilty. I was guilty of that mouth pleasure at that moment. So we're drinking a lot of water tonight and had soup with a lot of vegetables in it. Did I even have any meat in it?
No, it was just beans.
Oh, it was just beans. So yeah. So I had I had a vegetarian dinner. That's something I rarely do, but it has, well, of course, it has protein in it. But it had lots and lots of veggies in it. So Allison, Brian's impressed by your mic. My mic is a very old condenser mic, actually. I don't know. It's a USB condenser mic from a recording set that I bought, or I might even got for Christmas years ago. Me and my brother have matching ones. So it makes me look way more official than I actually am, and I travel everywhere with it. So let's see. Omega-3s are great. We all need them. I will say this about the diet stuff. One thing that has gotten for years and years and years, and if you aren't aware of it, there was a New York Times article about it. Fat got a bad name. And this was something that always kind of confused me when I was growing up, studying a lot of like biology and stuff, because I was in the exercise physiology in college. Like I had to take a lot of biology because I have to understand how the human body works. And you realize how much stuff is made out of like fatty acids and fatty lipids and stuff. And you're like, but how do we get them? Like if they're bad for us, because forever they've said that, you know, fat is bad, but fat's actually not bad for you. Fat's is actually good for you. The majority of your cells in your body are made of fat, so you actually need it. In fact, that's one of the things that kind of started flipping the study that the sugar industry had pushed through back in the 70s, I think it was. Sugar, the big sugar industry, aka like General Mills with their sugary cereals, and the juice industry was able to push through, these recommended dietary regulations on the idea that fat was bad, so that you would eat more cereal, because people used to eat a lot of things like eggs and stuff. And there might be some cases, yes, Scott, where like eating a lot of eggs, if you've had kidney involvement, is not very good for you. But for most of the for a lot of the healthy people out there, eggs and fatty meats and fatty things are good for you. And what's bad for you is sugar. What's bad for you is processed food. Those are just things that our body doesn't really understand how to handle and deal with. So eating real food, like Allison said, whether that's potatoes or vegetables or asparagus and broccoli or salmon or shrimp, those are good foods. And like I'm to the point now where like when I eat bad, I don't feel good. And I recognize that. And I recognize the impact it has on my body. And I look back to the way that I ate when I was in college and before I really understood a lot of this stuff. I heard it in class, but it was kind of like, it was kind of in one ear, out the other, because it's like, well, I don't see how this is directly affecting me right now. And plus you're young and dumb and you have the metabolism of a crack addict, basically, as a young adult male that runs a lot. You can put about anything in your body and it'll just burn right off. So, needless to say, I didn't have the best diet. But now it's pretty daggone good. So the peanut gallery is raising her hand again over here. So yes, Mom.
I was just going to say also, if your schedule permits and when you can each week, take time to actually eat slow enough to enjoy the food you're eating. Actually taste it and don't eat in such a rush, which I know a lot of people between work and working out and, everybody's lives are busy. But when at all possible, eat slower, pay attention to what you're eating, and actually enjoy the taste.
Enjoy.
You might end up eating less by actually eating slower and, when possible, enjoy food with friends and community.
Enjoy food around the dinner table. That's actually what Mom and I did before the podcast. Although I was guilty of having my nose in my phone for the first half of it. So I try to disconnect, but sometimes I'm too guilty, and I get too wrapped into something. I get worked up, and I got this on switch in my brain that just doesn't go off until something's fixed. So, as my mom said, if I went back to a flip phone, I wouldn't have to worry about that. Which is probably true. I might have to do that at some point in time. I just need to go off the grid. So I've lost my train of thought. Let me try to go back and catch up on this. See if there's any more comments here. Allison, oh my God, Weight Watchers is so off killer sometimes. Off kilter. They're off killer sometimes. Yeah, Weight Watchers. This is my thing with Weight Watchers. Everybody operates off a point system, and I've worked with a lot of clients and people over the years that have used Weight Watchers. My thing with Weight Watchers is a lot of times they. Like, I understand the idea of making it a point game, especially as an athlete. But I think it can create some negative connotations around food. I also think it encourages you to eat foods that it's like a point game. It's like, well, I can eat this and it's only 1 point, versus like eating something maybe that's a little better for you that might be higher points. That's why, like Katrina said, is learning to pay attention to your body. Learn to pay attention to how things make you feel. And honestly, I know this is going to sound strange, but being hungry sometimes is okay. It is not going to kill you to be, and I say that as a person sitting in the United States of America, that has access to food all the time. We have access to too much food, and food is too easily, most of us, basically, as long as you can afford to buy it, there is food at your fingertips at all time. You don't have to go out and kill it. You don't have to hunt it. Allison says your mom has the most incredible Southern Belle accent. My mom was born with it, and I'm glad, Allison, I'm having an impact while you're cooking. Hopefully you're not dumping too much sugar in there. let's see. Yes, sugar is bad, especially a lot of the processed like high fructose corn syrup stuff, and yeah, a lot of it causes inflammation. And as many of you may know, like the disease that I have, and a lot of the other patients that are, or a lot of people that are weighing in on this podcast a lot, are vasculitis patients. So they have problems with inflammation. So anything, any food that, whether that be sugar, whether that be, everybody's favorite one, gluten sometimes, there's a lot of foods that can cause Weight Watchers. Looks like Brandon Johnson saying processed food is or too much sodium in Weight Watchers. Yeah. Sodium has gotten a bad kick too. Sodium is one of those ones like if you actually kind of really dig into the research. Now, obviously, too much of anything, like I said, too much of anything is bad. So too much of anything is bad and will always be bad. But, sodium has been one of those things that it kind of like fat got the axe, whereas it's like, if people understand how osmosis works in the body and how things work on gradients, if you actually don't have the proper amount of sodium and stuff in your body, that works for all your muscle contractions and stuff. So you do need some sodium in your diet, but yeah, too much obviously is always a bad thing, and not good. But it's one of the things, like when I talk with a lot of my clients, a lot of them have said, oh, well, my doctor or this or that or the other, sodium. And I'm like, listen, if you eat food and eat real food, things like sodium, and, too many processed carbohydrates and all that sort of stuff will sort of start taking care of themselves. So don't get too don't get too hung up on one thing. But, primarily my huge thing with, like I said, with Weight Watchers is I think it encourages a lot of times people to eat the wrong food, because they're trying to play the points game, because obviously, to a large degree, food, and trying to lose weight obviously go together. But you also need to exercise. That needs to be part of the equation if you can. So you need to be able to, I've just completely lost my train of thought because Allison's over here making fun of my big words. She says osmosis, pressure gradients. Oh my God, those are such big fancy words. I did go to school for I don't know. I at least sat through classes for 6 years in college, and may or may not have gotten a paper published. Allegedly, we'll say, I got a paper published. So, anyways, I know what I was talking about, the exercise, and it's like a calorie in, calorie burn type situation. So that's where, you have to burn more calories to lose weight. But a lot of our problems just can be solved by eating the right foods, like my mom said over here, thinking about what you're eating, and like Katrina said earlier, pay attention. I promise if people started paying attention, honestly, if they paid attention to how food made them feel after they eat it, you would be less encouraged to eat that food. I'm to the point now in my life where there's stuff I won't eat the night before workouts, the night before long runs and stuff. And it's not because I can't eat it. It's just because I know it's going to kind of make me feel bad. Or I know I'm going to have to wake up extra early and have some more coffee to make sure it's all cleared out. It's, if you paid attention to how food makes you feel, you're a lot less likely to eat it. I'll earn a master's degree if I start, get Harrison to stop eating. Well, he is a growing teenage boy, and that is just, he's a tall kid and a swimmer, and those people just eat like animals anyway. They're savages the way they eat. Luckily, I'm just a runner, and not even like a long distance runner. so I don't have to eat that much. But like looking at like what some of the top level swimmers and stuff eat, like people like Michael Phelps, it makes me want to vomit how much food they eat. Or the weightlifters, God, people like The Rock. Has anybody seen what The Rock eats on a daily basis? He eats a snack of pancakes, a stack of pancakes with peanut butter and syrup every night as a snack before he goes to bed. Scott Harrison is a young vasculitis patient that I've gotten to know over about the last year. It's kind of from the area where I grew up. He was diagnosed with GPA about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, and he's like I said a minute ago, he's a swimmer and stuff, and I've kind of attempted to take him under my wing, but apparently I've got extra work to do according to his pops here. Scott, I wish I could play some Charlie Daniels for you. I guess my hobby is music. So I'm not a professional at like Allison, so I can't just play stuff at the drop of a hat. I don't have that kind of ear. My brother Mike could do it, but I don't have that kind of ear, and I'm a very, very slow learner. So I couldn't even just pop something up and sight read it and do it because I'm stupid like that and a slow learner. And I read slow, so I just have to deal with it. So maybe one day I'll break out the old guitar on here and see what happens. But anyways, I guess we've ended up talking about food and diet tonight and exercise. I guess that's appropriate. It is. Hopefully you've learned something. Hopefully you might learn something. And then if anybody has any specific questions about some of the stuff that I eat, I get asked that question a lot, I know. And I'm happy to answer it, as well as, if somebody wants to shoot me a message here later and follow up on something stupid that I said, or, they have a different opinion about something. I'm happy to chat about it. I like discussing this stuff, because, it is important. We all do need to pay attention to how things make us feel. Just like when you drink too much one night and you wake up with a hangover and a headache the next day, it can sometimes prevent you from doing that again for a while. We need to think about that with our food, and take the time to sit around the dinner table at night sometimes and slow down and enjoy the company, because I know that, I've certainly been guilty of it, but my family definitely, we made most of our we ate most of our meals around the table. And I think it's probably one of the reasons why our family's probably so close. And while we're all really loud because we're used to having to shout over the top of each other to get our point across. And if shouting doesn't work, we always could stoop to the level of making fun of somebody, or hurting their feelings. That's when people's feelings get hurt and somebody would inevitably leave the table crying. Sorry, Callie. But yeah. So if you take the time to slow down and eat and pay attention to what you're eating. Scott, being on the road, like I understand, I don't travel 200 days a year, but I will say that I do travel a lot with my running, and getting in the right nutrition on the road and being at airports is really difficult. Especially when you're trapped in an airport, and this is just a bad example and I don't eat a ton of them, but like to get I remember one time I got a little, I think it was like a ham and cheese sandwich, a thing of yogurt, and some granola, and it was like $18. I could have got a steak dinner for this. So it's difficult. And when a lot of times, even if I'm not in an airport, I'm driving, or where was I at? I was at Montreal. I had just they had us at a hotel. I didn't have access to really, because of the snowstorm, to really get anywhere. So we're eating the crappy food downstairs at the hotel bar. And it's not even like a healthy, the healthy wasn't an option. So it's very difficult time. It's very difficult to eat healthy on the road sometimes. And honestly, I know this is going to just sound absolutely crazy, but it is one of the reasons why I do actually eat bad sometimes, because like if I've run into people that freak out when they can't get certain foods and can't get certain things the night before a race, because they're so used and so focused on having had one thing all the time, or like having a special meal they have to eat, or if you do eat, I know this is kind of contrary to what I just said, but like if you eat good 100% of the time, when you do eat bad, your body kind of also really freaks out. So, I do have a day or a night a week where I'll kind of just like, I'll smash some pizza or have a big, nasty, thick hamburger. But, like I like to look at them, for me, I eat about 21 meals a week, with some snacks thrown in here and there, mainly after I'm running, to get some calories in me. But when you have 21 meals roughly a week, so seven meals or 7 days with 3 meals a day, if you're eating 19 of those pretty healthy or 18 of those pretty healthy, I think you're doing pretty daggone good. So, I think if you do that, you're winning the battle. That's high 70s, low 80s% of your diet being really healthy. That'll take you a very, very long way. But when you do travel, like I know I travel a lot, I know Allison travels a lot, Scott says he travels over 200 days a year, like finding stuff, Subway's become a very dear friend of mine, because it's one of the most widely available fast food restaurants that I know. The quality of it is almost always the same, except when you do you just run into some bad luck sometimes. But I know what I'm getting. They all offer the same thing. And it's consistent. It's consistent, and I know what I can get there that's good. So Scott said, what's more important, food or exercise? I would say food, because if you had to do one or the other, yeah, you can't exercise without fuel. I mean, you kind of can, and there's actually a lot of research right now. One of the things I was reading recently was actually about some of the benefits that can come from doing exercise in a fasted state, but that's a really freak situation. But yeah, I've got to say eating right, because exercise is very important, but you can exercise and still eat unhealthy and still have things that go wrong in your body. Whereas if you're eating correctly, and eating for your activity level, so if you're not super active, obviously, then eating for your activity level, I think you'll be better off. Obviously, both is best, but if you had to pick one, eating right is more, I would say, is more important than exercising, in my not so professional opinion. Yeah, that's what I'll say. I would say, and I'll stick with that. I think that's the right answer, because there's some people, honestly, too, that can't exercise. Whether that be through, time commitments, a disability, a disease, like I said, like just life. There's things that happen in life, and sometimes you just don't have the time to exercise. So it's more important, I think, because you're putting those things in your body and they're interacting with your cells in your gut, and that has an impact on how you feel. So I think if you had to do one or the other, I think eating right is the most important thing that you can do for yourself.
Try not to wait till you're 62 to start.
Yeah, or like my mom just said, try not to wait till you're 62 to start taking care of yourself.
It's harder to catch up than keep up.
Allison says Sylvester Stallone eats like a rabbit for a weightlifter. He eats six days per week. On Sundays, he eats a stack of waffles with syrup and all the fixins. Yeah, there's a lot of research actually now on intermittent fasting and fasting in general that is showing some very, very positive benefits and very, very positive benefits for inflammation and disease people or people with diseases around inflammation. It's something that I've been paying a lot of attention to with where the literature is heading. What they've kind of figured out. A lot of people probably heard the old wise tale of you don't need to eat late at night. Like you don't need to eat after 9 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock at night. Like eating after then is really bad for you. But what they figured out is it's not really so much the time. Although like some people are like, oh, I don't sleep good if I eat a big meal like right before I went to bed or something. There is that. But what they're finding out actually through research is that our gut bio has kind of a clock. And so when you start that clock at 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning or earlier when you wake up, what they've figured out is you got about 12 hours of your gut bio acting effectively. After about 12 hours, it's not as efficient at breaking down food and utilizing that food for nutrients. And so some of that stuff can hang around. Some of it they think might be triggers for inflammation or that stuff not getting processed as well or processed efficiently. So that's where some stuff could be potentially being converted to stored fat, which we don't want. So that's where the idea of intermittent fasting has come in. And if you think about it from a biological standpoint of how the human body was developed and evolved, we didn't always, like I alluded to earlier, food is too readily available for us right now. So we didn't always have refrigerators and pantries stocked full of loads of food. So food wasn't always readily available. So there was periods of time that a lot of our ancestors just didn't have food available. That's why our bodies store fat. That's why animals store fat. That's why bears eat a lot of food before they go into hibernation so that their body can live off that fat. And we can live off of our fat too. In fact, there was recently a lady that did a controlled fast for a year in the hospital and lost over 200 or 300 pounds. It was some obnoxious amount of weight, like just a large amount of weight. Now, granted, that was an extreme situation, but she lived off of her, stored fat for like a year in the hospital. Now, obviously, she was getting IV nutrients and a lot of other stuff, but our body can live off of our stored fat, and that's why that stored fat is actually there, is for times when we don't have food. The gut bio needs to rest. It needs to reset its clock. And they found, to one up the diet being more important than exercise in a way, they found that people eating all of their calories within 10 hours in one day, so really kind of restricting that time down to 10 hours, people weren't changing their eating habits at all, but were losing weight. They weren't consuming any less calories. They weren't even changing their eating habits, but their body was breaking down and utilizing that food better. So that's kind of how this kind of like triggers stuff. They were like, wait a minute, what's happening here? These people aren't changing their diet. They're not changing the amount of calories they're eating, but they're losing weight. And that's kind of what they realized. And of course, they've for vasculitis patients and a lot of other autoimmune diseases, they're finding more and more links, it seems like almost every day, between healthy gut bacteria and inflammation and diseases. And also on the other side of that, like even if we don't know the links to it, a lot of the medications and stuff that we have to take, whether that's prednisone or something like Cytoxan or Imuran or methotrexate or any of these other like the Rituxan, like all these drugs and stuff that we take, those do have effects on our gut bio. So it's incredibly important, I think, for vasculitis patients to to eat healthy because we've done so much damage because of those medications that we have to take. So like there's varying research has been shown obviously about taking an actual probiotic pill. But like when I'm on medication, I definitely take one of those. When I haven't been, when I'm further away from all those drugs, I try to rely on good foods that have those, that are high in probiotics as opposed to just taking one, because it's always better to get something from the natural source than taking it. The gut bio is a very, very interesting topic, and the intermittent fasting thing, I think, when you think, I'm a big fan of science, and science is constantly, proving itself wrong, and we're trying to figure out what we have, what we can do with the knowledge that we currently have. And with where science is leading right now, I think it's incredibly, I keep using the word incredibly right now. I don't even know why. I think it's smart to because you kind of have to make the next leap, the next step. It's like, all right, well, if we're finding this out, like, what does that mean? What does that mean for the way that we eat? What does that mean for the way that we consume stuff? And like, why is that? Like, we haven't necessarily figured out why it is that the gut's like that, but if you kind of like infer and think about it, it's like, it makes sense that the human body is developed that way. And, refrigeration was invented in the 1930s. Before that, they just loaded up meats with salts and stuff, or dried meats out to preserve them. So like I said, readily available food is a new invention that our bodies have not adapted to yet. So if you think about it from the body wanting to store energy and store food or store food as fat, it makes sense. And it makes sense that we wouldn't be used to having just so much food just shoveled down our throats. So trying to keep stuff in that 12-hour time window is, I think, is huge, and can help people. I know, since I've started doing that and trying to live by that, it's I've noticed a huge difference in the way I feel. And even when I was on loads of prednisone last year, I managed somehow. I think it helped me keep my weight down. Now, obviously, it spiked some, but it not near like it used to. So my mom likes it better. And, I've talked with other people, and, I try to do it 5 or 6 days a week, because there's just some days where stuff doesn't work. But, basically, if you're going to eat late, just wait to eat breakfast. Wait to eat something until you either get to work, or just, when you wake up, start that clock, you need to try to get it in at the end of the day by the same time. So, that's, I think, the right thing to do. So it looks like Allison's got dinner in the oven now, stuffed peppers with organic ground beef. Way better for you. It tastes way better. And I know I feel way different eating organic ground beef. If there is one thing that you're going to buy organic, I would suggest buying your protein organic. Fruits, vegetables, that stuff can be washed off. But the way we treat our animals, buying organic or grass-fed beef is I think the smartest thing that you can do. And it's honestly not even that much more. Like, for instance, I think it's about 50 to 60 cents more per pound for like organic ground beef than the normal cut of ground beef that I bought. Because when I went to make the switch, I was expecting it to be a lot more, and I was like, oh, this is only like 50 cents more. Like, I can definitely afford this. It's not like some of the things, like even some of the eggs, it's like, as much as, like I said earlier, I eat a lot of eggs. So like, as much as I eat eggs, like, I can't afford the whole range, like cage-free chicken eggs, because those are like $4 or $5, and for 12, and I eat way more than 12 in a week. So, I do still buy the cheaper eggs, but the proteins and stuff, buying those organic and free range and stuff like that, I think it's way more important. But that does sound really good. It's probably not as good as my mom's soup was, but I think it's definitely good. Allison mom wants to know what time of dinner. She said she'll be right over. And Doug said he's going to bring scotch. So it looks like, Allison, we're all coming over to your house for dinner. Doug's bringing the scotch. And Scott's going to be we'll bring wild pheasant. I did see where Scott had a nice hunting trip the other day. Actually, prednisone has killed my weight, and I cannot see my ankles anymore. Prednisone is a devil drug, and has caused a lot of us to put on a lot of weight. So actually, I do understand that battle, and I did find that that the intermittent fasting did, because in the past, and I know I'm on the low side. Some people have put on a lot more. In the past, I've put on 25 or more pounds due to the prednisone. And I think I only put on about 8 or 10 last time. And I think a lot of that had to do with the way that I was eating. So if you got any specific questions you want to ask Allison, Ashley, please feel free to hit me up. I'll be happy to answer any of those I can. So anyways, guys, it looks like we are kind of at the hour mark here. So with your time in mind, I'm going to kind of start wrapping this up here. Like I said, if anybody's got any more questions about the diet and stuff, if this is a topic you want me to cover some more stuff about, leave a comment. And maybe we'll do one of these where y'all pick the topic for me, instead of me coming to y'all next time. So anyways, like I said, I'm going to be leaving these podcasts the same way each week now. And I will remind everybody, I'll be out at Northwestern High School on Saturday. I will have copies of Going the Distance available for you to pick up. I also might have some with me while I'm at UNCC on Friday evening, hanging out, watching some races, but on the low key. Hadn't really set anything up with them, so I'm not going to try to break anybody's rules. But so anyways, I'll be out there on Friday and Saturday. Stop by and say hey. I'll be happy to sign a copy and get one in your hands if you're in the area. Otherwise, I will see everybody back on here next week. Thank you, everybody, so much for participating tonight. I think it went really, really well, and I'm excited to see the changes that some of you might make. So let me know next week. If any of y'all make some changes over the next week, hopefully you learned something tonight. We'll follow up next week at 8 o'clock next Wednesday. Till then, go out in the world and learn something that might change your mind. Oh, and Mom says bye.